now you spoke about the demography. I want to share this image for people. Um, this is basically West Bengal's regional dynamics, and um, I mean, I there are just areas in West Bengal where what can the government, like, how does one do this? Like, yeah, there are certain areas that, like, what is the center going to do? Like, how is the center going to control this? Is something that I'm wondering. Like, look at the population, and this is the 2011 census. Like, in Murshidabad, in terms of percentage, is 66.27 as per the 2011 census, and all the violence is happening in Murshidabad. It's not rocket science that wherever the Muslim population has reached a very dangerous critical mass, we are having this issue. I mean, Dada, this has to be said without, and without any apology. Yeah, that demography is destiny. That if demography of an area changes, the destiny of the Hindus of that area is quite obvious. So it's somewhere down the line, we as a society, as a polity, need to have this discussion without being thinking that, oh, there's somebody's going to call us a bigot. No, there are objectively bad ideas. And right now, the honorable member of parliament of TMC from the Rajya Sabha, who also happens to be a ex-journalist, is talking about fake news and fake photos without condemning the violence that has been unleashed on the innocent Hindus of that area. Or the other one, Mr. Derek O'Brien, he's sharing food photos on his social media. I mean, what is going on?
Kushal, can you just display the map once again? I would like to explain
Sure.
it.
Yeah, sure.
See,
Sure.
if you look at Kuch Bihar, which is a border district, it says 25.54. I am pretty sure by now it has gone up to 30 or crossed 30. Jalpaiguri has 11.51. It would have reached at least 18 to 20%. Darjeeling, as you see, it says 5%. But now, if you go to Darjeeling, you will see the visible presence is way more than that. North Dinajpur, which was after partition 100% Hindu area, almost nearly 100% Hindu area. North Dinajpur now has 50% Muslim population per 2011. This is also a border district. In South Dinajpur, it is 25%. Again, a border district. Malda, 51%, a border district. Murshidabad, 66.27, which is a border district. Nadia, it is 26.76. Nadia, again, was a nearly 100% Muslim zone. In North 24 Parganas, it is 25, almost 26%. It would be close to 30, if not more than 30 today. And Kolkata says 20.6. I think that is an underestimation. It will be at least 25, if not more than that. And South 24 Parganas is 35.57, say 36%. So this is your demography along the border zone. If you look at the central districts, Birbhum, again, a Hindu majority district, now has 37% Muslim population. Burdwan has 21% Muslim population. Now, this kind of escalation of any single population is totally inexplicable unless we are looking at widespread immigration from across the border. And what I try to explain to people is that don't look at the land border or the riverine border alone. You have the BSF patrolling there. So, most of the people get blocked at the border while trying to cross it illegally. But if you look at the bottom part of West Bengal, which is the estuarine zone, that is the Ganga estuary, and that is the Sundarbans zone. And if you look at the map of Bangladesh, it is an adjoining estuary zone, and that is the Sundarbans part in Bangladesh. And you have boatloads of people coming in, landing in the Sundarbans area, and then traveling up. to North 24 Parganas, South 24 Parganas. And today, if you go to Bengal, it is the people of Bengal. I'm not saying this. It's the people of Calcutta who will show you bastis and say, these are all Rohingyas. They will show you a shanty town and say, these are all Rohingyas. They will show you kacha houses and they will say, these are Rohingyas who have been settled by the TMC. Her own people are saying this. This is not the center saying it. This is not me saying it or others saying it. Her own people are saying this. So when you say that it's all this is fake news, I mean, is she accusing her own people of telling lies? Why? Why would they tell lies? And data doesn't lie. The data is right here in front of you. And yes, I entirely agree that demography is destiny. When demography is allowed to spin out of control, when demography becomes unscientifically, lopsided, and and poses a social disruption, a cultural disruption, then there is a problem. And it's not only about West Bengal or India that I talk about, or Assam that I talk about. If you look at Europe, the crisis which Europe is going through, the crisis which all of Europe, the central part of Europe, Christendom, the entire Christendom, what was known as Christendom, the crisis which they face today is a crisis posed by their demography, and the demography of their of Christendom has posed or is posing today an existential crisis. So this is a reality, and somehow we have willed ourselves into believing that it is wrong to talk about this, and anybody who talks about it openly is not secular. He's some right-wing bigot. He's some bhakt, or he's some uneducated lumpen element. I'm sorry. Just because you don't want to recognize a problem that stares you in the face doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist, or the problem is fictional, or that everything is fine. It is not. India today faces a huge problem, and the sooner the government of India, and by the government of India I just don't mean only the party in power, but the system of government of India recognizes this problem and moves forward.
Dada, my disappointment with, when I say not the BJP, I mean the state, the overall state apparatus in India, has been that I just don't think we seem to take these things seriously enough until things go really out of hand. And this is just my point of view. I'm speaking on my behalf, not on Kanchan Gupta's behalf. And demography matters because demography carries ideas. A lot of my liberal friends keep talking about this secular communal rubbish all the time, and I just ask them one thing. I said, can a gay person live in Muhammad Ali Road in India? Can they? I ask them straight up. They cannot. If you are someone who has modern ideas, you can only live in a Hindu area in India, or a Christian area in India, or a Buddhist area in India, or an atheist colony in India. You can't live in a majority Muslim area. That's just a fact of life. Doesn't make me anti-Muslim. I am not saying all Muslims are like that. I am saying I, as an open atheist, cannot live in a Muslim area. I just can't. Because my life will be made miserable on a daily basis. When will
Well,
we start having comfortable discussions around this?
no, I agree with you. Popular memory is very short-lived. People forget, and that is actually the real problem with India. We have a very poor sense of history, both long-term history as well as contemporary history. There was a gay professor in Aligarh Muslim University, and he was outed, and we know what followed after that. So Aligarh Muslim University, which is very determined that the middle name of the university must not change. It should not become Aligarh University, but it should remain Aligarh Muslim University. The way in which they treated that poor professor is unimaginable. And that is exactly what I mean. You see, demography is destiny. Demography faces a threat to an entire society, irrespective of whether you are a liberal, whether you are a non-liberal, whether you are a lefty, or whether you are a righty. It is a problem that stares everybody in the face. And within that matrix, I have a feeling, or this is my view, that the liberal segment of society, the bleeding heart liberals of India, of the rest of the world, they face the biggest challenge from the rising tide of demographic disbalance. So it is, we the look down upon right wingers. We will survive. Don't worry about us. But it is your existence that is in doubt. I mean, you will not be allowed to survive. You will not be allowed to sort of survive this onslaught.
What bothers me is the hypocrisy around the discourse. Like, I have come to a point where I've actually had enough of this rubbish. I like secularism. I like liberal values. I like all these things. It got applied on the Hindu society. By and large, Hindu society accepted it. But you have a large swath in this country that refuses to accept this idea, and we are somehow supposed to say, nahi, 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 dheere dheere karte hain, dheere dheere. Arre, aur kitna dheere karenge, dada? It's been 75 years since independence. How much more dheere dheere do we want? Every time we talk about any reform, it is like, oh, did we take the community along or not? Arre, but why? Why should the community be taken along? If it's a good idea, it's a good idea, right?
Well, the community, it's very strange when suddenly people remember the community. When Nehru brought in his 5 Hindu reform laws, were the Hindus as a community taken into consideration? Were the Hindus stakeholders in those reformist laws? They were not. In fact, there were elements in those laws in those days. I mean, societies evolve, communities evolve, our thinking changes, our perspective changes. And this I'm talking of close to I mean, it is 70 years ago and 75 years ago. And a lot has changed in the way we look at ourselves and at the world between then and now. But in those days, all Hindu objections, including objections raised by President Rajendra Prasad, they were steamrolled by Nehru in bringing in these laws. Good for him and good for Hindus that these laws were brought in. And in the long term, we have benefited from these laws. But
Yes.
subsequently, every time we have tried to bring in a reformist law, which is not only about Muslims. The biggest protest has come from the Muslim community. Again, let me take you slightly back in time. In 1970s, adoption was a big issue in our country. I mean, adoption laws were very complicated. There were people who wanted to adopt, they couldn't adopt. Parsis couldn't adopt, and Parsis needed to adopt because there were wealthy Parsis who were childless, and they needed to adopt to pass on their wealth. And after they died, and there was, or it would just pass into some community wealth of which they were not very sure, whatever. And it is to address these questions, it is to address these flaws in adoption in our country. Indira Gandhi brought in the adoption bill. Now, the adoption bill applied equally to all communities. A Hindu could adopt under the adoption bill. The process was laid down. The legal sanction was given. A Parsi could do it. Process was laid down. Legal sanction was given. And Muslims who also are disallowed to adopt children by Sharia, they too could adopt children under this law, and they would get legal protection. And it was not a mandatory law, it was a voluntary law. If you chose to adopt a child under this law, the law would apply. If you chose not to apply, then it's not that the government would come knocking on your door and thrust the law down your throat and make you adopt a child. But what happened? Immediately, like we are seeing with the Waqf Amendment Act, immediately the mullahs took to the streets. There was widespread violence. The few public buses we had in Delhi those days, or in the other metros, then there were only a few metros. Those were set on fire, etc., etc., etc. And such was the furor that the party turned on Indira Gandhi and said, no, no, you must take the community into consideration before you pass this bill or bring this bill. And that was the end of the adoption bill. And that was also the birth of the so-called All India Muslim Personal Law Board, because the mullahs decided the only way we can tackle the government of India and its secular pretenses is by having an organization of our own, which will threaten to disrupt life in India every time you thought of a law that benefits people across communities. We will not allow it. So that is how they turned their vote, VOTE, into a veto, VETO. And people do not realize this. They just simply don't realize this. A book is published in London and it is immediately banned in India. Nobody has read it, nobody has seen it, leave alone Muslims in this country or their leaders. They don't even know what the writer looks like, or what the cover of the book looks like, or what is it about. But there are riots in Kashmir, and people die in those riots. I will bring you to the Shah Bano judgment and what Sayyid Shahabuddin did. He threatened that mind my words, every Muslim Indian, he qualified it as Muslim Indian. He didn't say Indian Muslim. He said every Muslim Indian will fight this government in the streets, in parliament, and we shall not allow this judgment to come into force. And he called for a boycott of Republic Day or Independence Day celebrations, whatever was nearby. And he said that lights will not be switched on, and we will determine what is right and what is wrong for a Muslim woman who's been thrown out from her marital home. And that is how it happened. The Rajiv Gandhi government crumbled and they gave in. So Nehru had his way with the Hindu laws. Indira Gandhi had to cave in rather than bring in a modernizing law. Rajiv Gandhi had to cave in rather than accepting the judicial verdict in the Supreme Court and making that into a case law. And during the rest of the time, we had either khichdi governments till Mr. Modi came to power, which were very happy to sort of play second fiddle to the mullah leadership of India. So whether it was the Congress, whether it was the various other state units, state parties, that was the normal story.